See, according to me, uh, the single biggest use the term roadblock, and I think it's I would call it a barrier. But the single biggest barrier to making a change in terms of going digital in organization, especially in learning, is actually cultural. It is infrastructure, technology, all these things follow. But the biggest challenge that L&D practitioners are likely to face, especially in an organization which is planning to go more digital. So I'm talking about one of the incipient, phases, people who are in the beginning stages. By far, the biggest challenge is to change the culture of the organization. And I'm sure when Santosh talks about it, he'll bear me out when he talks about he'll be talking about his clients. But I'm talking about from the perspective I've been in both positions. Um, it is one thing to talk about digital learning, and everybody does that. But it used to be another thing, quite another thing, to actually implement it at scale, right? So, even today, if you talk to various people in your, in your organization, for example, or even mine, or there'll be a certain percentage who will be talking about, yeah, I mean, digital is good, but it's ultimately inferior substitute to something else. The something else could be anything. It could be classroom, it could be whatever, it could be a workshop, whatever. So the challenge that you face from a person who is trying to drive learning and development is to first overcome that. And in some ways, it can be done by two things, right? One is a top-down approach, and the other one is bottom-up. What do I mean by that? The bottom up means that when you keep doing certain things and people start experiencing it and liking what you're doing in terms of e-learning, right? Then they slowly get converted, but it's a long-term process. Okay, it doesn't happen overnight. It's not going to happen in 3 months, right? But for that to happen, your e-learning courses have to be of such good quality, or whatever you do in digital. I'm not just talking, e-learning is one part of digital. Is it has to be so good that people see it and then they want to see more of it. Right? So this is where Bhavin's talk about content being king. I would say content is king, yes, but it is closely held by the queen, which is design. So the combination of the king and the queen, which is content and design, is what is going to make your course, succeed or fail in an organization. That's number one. Number two is the top-down approach, where at some point, the management of the organization has to mandate, look, we are going here. This is going to happen. So you guys have to, everybody in the organization has to get used to the fact that learning is going to go more and more digital. And I firmly believe that this process has been super accelerated, as it were, by the current crisis that we are going through, right? And there are going to be certain industries, once we get out of this, it's already happening, but now it's happening in what, in Hindi, it's called Zabardasti. It's happening Zabardast right now. But what is going to happen is that there is no turning back from this. There is no turning back. The road that we have pushed into would mean that I would say at least 50 to 60% of industries will go 100% digital learning from now. There will be no classroom learning or negligible classroom training in certain kinds of industries. For example, retail. I'm completely confident that there is going to be no classroom training in retail after a certain point or after this COVID crisis. So you can call it a top down or a force majeure down sort of approach, but it is now inevitable. So we have to think about now what are we going to do to make our organizations, adopt this as fast as possible, and then at the same time think about the quality of learning. Right? In the organizations that I have worked with, you are talking about a case-based approach. The organizations I have worked with, uh, I have been fortunate enough that for example, in Philips, it is already a technology-based organization, but still we had to undergo a lot of struggles to actually implement the scale of digital learning that we wanted to. And those will happen. I mean, it's not just a struggle of infrastructure, it is also uh, a struggle of getting people to adopt a different style of working because they're confident, especially, for example, if the organization is already being successful, then you have to make a case. Hey, if we're already doing well, why should I change the way I'm doing things, right? And that those barriers will need to be crossed by L&D organization. And the only way to do that is making L&D part of the decision-making think tank of the organization, which means that learning and development has to be part of the business. It has to be embedded in the business. When a business strategy is made, from day zero, L&D has to be part of it. And so we are talking about a larger sort of issue here, right? It's not just technology that is going to be there. To be able to implement technology properly, the HR, L&D departments have to be part of the think tank of the organization. So that is step zero, even before step one for me. And as we go on with this conversation, I talk about more things, what happens in step one, for example. But just remember that without L&D being part of strategy, this is not going to, it's going to be much more difficult to succeed.
What are the best practices, to your knowledge, about incentivization of self-learning and development initiatives at the end of the employee?
For me, the attractiveness, we have to be able to answer the question, what's in it for me? It's an old question. We talk about WIIFM all the time in the tech circles. If we can't answer it to ourselves as L&D people, then we can't answer to our internal stakeholders who are going to answer, why should I take this course? What's in it for me? So the incentive has to be twofold. There is one, what I call the minor incentive, the smaller incentive, that maybe you do gamification of your L&D. Bhavin talked about a learning path. What does a learning path mean? That instead of making an e-learning course as a training event, you make it part of a training ecosystem or a training journey, which means that even for one subject, you never give just one intervention. This is your half an hour e-learning course. You have done this, you're done with it. No, that will never happen. People will not retain learning. And that many studies have shown that just going through a certain course means that you retain only about 20% of the learning after 1 week, right? So that's never going to succeed. How about making it a journey which is also interesting and maybe gamify it? That, okay, if I take an e-learning course, I also get access to something else. I get access to a free article from Harvard Business Review because I've completed this. I also gain some badges. I gain some recognition. There is some R&R happening for people who have completed a certain number of courses. If I do my assessment and if I get my assessment certificate, then it has got some impact on how on the kind of recognition I'm shown by the organization. So these are the what I call the local level sort of incentives that we have to give, because ultimately companies have to understand that they are not doing employees a favor by training them, right? We are all in it together. We are training them because we are also getting something out of it, right? And therefore we have to incentivize them also. Why are you doing this? Because we have a shared sort of goal, we have a shared objective, and which means that if companies are going to gain out of it, employees also have to gain out of it. The second one, which is the major or the higher level sort of incentive, what I call, is that there has to be some connection. Ideally, there should be some connection between the kind of training you're doing, L&D interventions you're doing, an employee is doing, and how it is reflecting in their in their company profile, as it were, right? Does the does the certificate that you get or the courses training you do they have any impact on your uh, uh, year-end appraisal, right? Does your HR information system, HRIS, is it connected to your LMS that it actually updates what are the things this particular employee is an expert at, what are the intermediate at, and what are the beginners at? If there is no bidirectional flow between the HRIS and the learning management system, then again, in the long run, at the end of the year, the employee says, but I have done this training, I have this training, but that has got no connection with the with their payment, with their salary increase. It's got no connection with their rating. So what is the incentive of the employee if there is no connection? Because then all that remains is anecdotal. I had done this 6 months back. I had done this training. how it has helped the company. How has it helped the company? What is the company giving back? So there has to be some way of collecting information about what people are doing, right? And giving them rewards based on how it has helped the company.
So what you're talking about in essence is connecting the output of learning management system to the HRIS and the talent management systems of an
Absolutely.
organization.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it is imperative. And this is again where technology is going to play a role. And this is the area where different technologies kind of converge. The HRIS, say a workday. Will a workday talk to a cornerstone learning management system? Will it be able to share information, right? Will the cornerstone learning management system be able to share information with Edcast? I am one of the people who always actually advocates that every organization should have a learning management system, and if they want to use AI based tools to push through content, they should also have a learning experience platform on top of it, right? Like what the Tatas are doing right now. So yes, I mean, all these systems need to be able to, there has to be interoperability, because otherwise, again, it will get siloed, which is the main problem in many organizations still. It's, to be frank, it's not everybody's cup of tea, because not everybody has the physical part of it, right? The phygital concept is perfect, or rather, it is applicable to organizations who are making that leap from say a physical training institute, right, into digital. So yes, when I was part of Tata's was like that. They had the Tata Management Training Center in Pune, which was completely a physical thing, and then they were going to go into digital, and therefore you needed a phygital sort of campus where phygital and digital come together. Similarly, there are many organizations who actually have their physical training institutes, right? Uh, so somebody is asking me a question about a company like SAIL, which is yours organization. If you already have a physical training center, then I'm sure you're looking at how you can merge digital with it. So that is where the phygital concept comes in. And the phygital thing is, it's got its own set of sort of priorities, its own issues, and things that you have to think about, right? So what are the things, for example, that you would think about when you are uh, uh, looking at at digital campus, as it were? One is, for example, control. How much control are you going to have over that product, right? That, how much control do you want over it? Because let's face it, if you're going to merge digital and physical, you have to give it out. At some point you have to bring in consultants, you have to bring in people to actually do it for you, right? So the amount of control you want, the kind of cost you're willing to invest, the resources that you have internally, right? And how much time do you give to this? These four things are the most important. And for a company like, say, SAIL, for example, the only way to do it is to create a project and dedicate people to that project, right, internally. And those people should be doing only that. It can't happen on a piecemeal basis. If you're going to do it, you have to give project, you have to treat it like a complete project, and you have to go for that digital concept.
Now, applicability of this learning and development, online learning and development, e-learning, when it comes to driving leadership programs or say soft skill programs, how much relevant you found for such programs, this concept of e-learning?
It's a very good point, because this is where the point of contention comes in. So when I say, and there are two schools of thought, and I'll explain to you why. One is that, okay, if you believe in management training for your leadership, like your managers and management training has got a lot of aspects which require uh, concurrent and immediate feedback, right? So if you're, for example, having a group discussion on a topic, and you're a faculty yourself, Yusuf, you know that you conduct group discussions, you conduct things in class. Somebody says something, somebody replies, and you are able to give immediate feedback, right? Based on the content, based on, because the content is if I can use technical, it's completely customized because it's what people are thinking at that moment and saying, right? And therefore, your reaction is also customized to what they're thinking and saying. That happens best in a classroom because that can't really happen in an e-learning program. It has to be synchronous, as it were. Even if it is not in a classroom, it has to be like we are doing right now. That if I can see what you're saying, I can see your body language, I can see whether you're thinking that is Shantanu talking bullshit or not. I can see your face. So that synchronicity has to be maintained for management training.
So basically, what you are suggesting that
What I'm suggesting is that
yeah,
management training that we have in class needs to be enhanced with the digital part, which means that there is a lot of thing, and this is where an instructional designer comes into play. If you have a 5-day training, for example, it is my firm belief that any classroom training can be reduced by at least one third, if not 50%, right, in class, and that 50% can actually be replaced by digital training. So that gives you, you saves opportunity cost. It gives you better, better control over the number of people who have to come in to a certain place. It saves you cost, time, effort, that's everything. So if you have a 5-day course, your thinking should be that how can I reduce this classroom component to 2 days, and all the theory bit I take online into an e-learning course or webinars like this. And instead of having 5 days together, maybe I spread it over 3 months and have people come back to it regularly with different interventions, right? So that the retention is also longer. So that's what I would advise for management. The other school of thought, which I must mention, by the way, it's very radical. It says that there is no requirement for management training. All that is required in an organization is skills-based training. People who are good managers will do it anyway. And senior management definitely doesn't require training. There are major organizations which believe this, right? So if a training, if you're a senior manager, you're a general manager and above, things like that, you do not require any management training at all. You should just be making sure that the people who are reporting into you uh, get their training, right? You might not agree, I might not agree, but there are successful organizations think of that as well.
okay. So what you wanted to say in essence was that this concept of phygital is mostly applicable to leadership training or soft skill training.
Correct. And for new age organizations, that phygital option is not there at all, because who has time to set up buildings and classrooms and all in physical locations with our real estate costs and actually do that? So they will go completely digital. Phygital training only works for larger organizations who already have these setups, and then they have to kind of combine the two worlds together.